Hey, welcome back everybody to Fun is Offensive. Today I'm going to be showing y'all a video about tips and tricks on how to bring some kind of boring vanilla posed figures in your collection to just a little bit of a new level. With a few simple moves, you can bring that lifeless figure to a whole new level of fun and appeal to the eye and whatever the fuck else. Fuck it. Now to start out, I'm using this Sabretooth because he has the most standard body. No butterfly joints, no boot cuts, just straight on DJ knees and ease, bicep, upper thigh cut, ball joint rocker for a head. Pretty cut and dry and standard articulation across the board. Now what I'm showing you here is don't move both sides of your body when you make a pose. You want to alternate. Your left arm going forward, you want to have your right leg going forward. The left leg's going back, your right arm's going back. It's opposites. It's just natural balance. To say it creates natural balance on the figure so it stands easier and doesn't fall over. A lot of people have problems keeping their figures standing in their display. Not to toot the old tugboat, but I usually got maybe about 3 that fall a year. Mine pretty much always stay in place. So this is basically me pointing out and demonstrating the whole opposites going forward and opposites going back. There's a little more to it. We'll talk about that later. And in just doing that alone, you're not even moving the torso until now, but you have an effective pose. It's just so easy. It's like the best advice I can honestly say is if there is a point of articulation, if there's a point where there's a cut, a bend, if you can move a wrist a little bit, whichever way, bend it. Move every point of articulation. It's going to add more natural, fluid movement almost. In my poses, I go for natural. Like, if it doesn't look like a human could actually get into that pose, then I'm not going to put it in that pose. I will say some also good advice. Get yourself a Spider-Man figure. Get yourself a Spider-Man figure, preferably the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man. That's probably the most affordable and easily obtainable. Do a little Google search, read some comics, watch some movies. Get poses in your mind of what they look like. Take pictures, and then try and make that figure look exactly like that picture. I say Spider-Man because he's the most agile and dynamic character. He has the most iconic poses. Some are the most simple, some are the most basic, some are so elaborate to pull off that you really got to know the figure. But once you're done messing around with Spider-Man and you got down like a feel for what the figure can do, take the style of the poses and transfer those poses over to the other figures you buy, such as Sabretooth. This was a pose I had my Spider-Man on my display, and all I did was just copy it and bam it onto Sabretooth. And it adds such a more dynamic look to the figure itself. Not the Spider-Man figure, but the figure you're trying to pose. Whatever pose you want to pose your figure in, why don't you try and get in that pose? And then you'll notice how the knees bend, what foot goes back, what foot goes forward. I twist to the right. I'm leaning over to the left a little bit. All these things help you to know the look of the figure, and it gets that more natural, normal look. Now, that's just a sick-ass pose in general. I can't even help that. Okay, so how I have his leg positioned back, how I swing it like that, you can also swing that forward and get a really far up, like straightforward leg for more dynamic poses. Boot cuts would have put this pose in a lot better use, but see, I mean, you can just get really deep down and dynamic with these easy, basic, articulated figures. Now, you have to pay close attention kind of to this whenever you're doing a falling or a flying type of pose. If you're going to go for a more natural look, biceps are important. Look at your arms, again, with the pose you want to make. Put your arms back all the way if you're doing a falling or a flying pose. If you're speed flying, your biceps are going to be closer to your pecs and your sides. But if you're gliding, so to speak, the front of your biceps are going to go more outward. Now back to the knees. If you want to have a crouching pose where both knees are going to be bent, the leg moving forward, you only want to bend the bottom of the double jointed knee. Leave the top joint flat. Front weight's going to be supported on that, and that's going to help keep your figure stable. And as for the leg going back, you only want to bend the top portion of the joint. Leave the bottom joint touching that knee. That's going to help lock in that balance for the back support. Those are really going to help keep your figure stable. You can position the thighs, turn the thighs. If you have boot cuts, move those around too. Those are all going to keep your figure stable on the ground when you have a crouching dynamic pose like this. Well, that concludes our broadcast day. I hope everybody got some kind of use out of this at all. Until next time.